Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast and to season 2. Thank you for your patience and support during our summer break. And I'm so excited to be back with you all again. I'm your host, Lily Ellen Duenas, and together we'll talk about the world of yoga and we'll talk to people from around the world. If you're tuning in, then I wanted to send a huge thank you your way. Thank you for your continued support, and if you feel called, I'd love to get to know you a little better. So head on over to my social media channels and exciting news, I'm finally on TikTok. So join me at Wild Yoga Tribe on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and any other social media channel. I'm on nearly all of them now, except Snapchat. Anyways, are you ready to dive into the episode? Let's get started. Welcome back to the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. I am so excited to be back. Episode 51. Here we are. It's so great to be back together after the season break. So welcome to season 2. Today, I am thrilled to be joined with Olga Ramer. She's a yoga teacher and studio owner in Georgia, the country, not the state. So Olga first started practicing yoga in the beginning of 2000 in Croatia. She changed a few styles. She changed a few countries, and then she found yoga in daily life. That's a yoga system that's under a guru, and I'm so excited to hear more about her and her journey with that and about the system yoga in daily life. I know it's comprehensive. It involves asana, pranayama, meditation, kriyas, as well as a yogic lifestyle. So actually, when she did get this training, the country of Georgia did not have a single yoga studio in the whole country. So Olga went through her yoga teacher's training. She became certified, and in 2010, she opened the very first yoga studio in Georgia called the Yoga Cave. So thank you so much, Olga, for being with me here today. I'm so excited to dive into your story.
Hi, Lily. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. So for the first question, I would love to just dive into your story and ask, how did yoga come into your life and what has that journey been like for you?
It started in 2000. I was working at the international organization, OC, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, in Croatia. And that was right after the war. So I came in 1999. And that's when the war in Yugoslavia actually ended. And my job was very stressful because we were working with the people that were affected by the war. And we did a lot of very stressful and emotionally charged missions and projects. And so I was very stressed. I had some panic attacks, and my doctor recommended to start doing yoga. So that's how I started, and that was very painful experience because I was not very flexible. We were doing for about 1 hour, and that were mainly asanas, and at the end, little like shavasana. And that was very difficult for me. I was not flexible. I could not bend. I could balance. And then slowly, somehow, I got into this practice. And then already I moved to another country after this. And then I continued practicing some yoga, but that was all physical yoga. I changed different styles. Like I was doing Iyengar style. I was doing Ashtanga, power yoga, shadow yoga, all kinds of yoga. And after 4 years of practicing a physical aspect of yoga, I moved to Sarajevo. At the time it was 2004. And at that time in Sarajevo, the only place that I could find that was doing yoga was that system yoga in daily life. I didn't know anything about it. And at first I didn't like it actually because everything was very slow. The asanas were very slow. And then there were pranayamas, which I have not practiced before. And there were also meditation at the end. And that was the hardest part for me. Though I was practicing for 4 years, physically, it was very difficult for me to sit still in one position. Even for 5 minutes, it was difficult. And I had gazillions of different thoughts that came into my mind. since that was the only yoga studio that I found in Sarajevo at the time, I stayed. And by the end of the month, actually, I really liked the meditation practice. And I had some interesting experiences. And I started asking the instructor about the system and learned that actually it's the system that comes from Rajasthan, from India, and the knowledge is ancient Indian system, and the knowledge transfers from the teacher to the disciple, from the guru to the disciple, and already for many generations, for many centuries, there is a guru. And currently, there is a guru that lives in Rajasthan in India, and once a year or a couple of times a year, he comes to Europe and hold seminars. And after practicing this system for a year, I came to Hungary, where it was the seminar of Paramahansa Swami Maheshwarananda, who is the guru of the system, now living guru, realized master, and met him and became his disciple. About the same time, I found out that there were no yoga studios in Georgia at all. There were people that were practicing yoga, but they were doing it at home, renting apartments somewhere and practicing there, but no yoga studio. So I was sad about it because I thought that yoga by this time, I already knew about yoga a lot and it helped me a lot, both for my physical and my mental states. And so I decided that it would be a good idea to start teaching classes in Georgia. So I went through the teacher's training in our system and yoga in daily life and became the certified instructor. And first, I was doing both my job. At the time, I was actually working at the American Embassy. And at the same time, I was teaching yoga, but teaching only to my American colleagues and to my Georgian colleagues at the embassy. But soon there were so many people outside of the embassy that were eager to practice yoga. And they asked me to start teaching yoga that I first rented the place in the downtown of the capital, Tbilisi of Georgia, and started teaching yoga there. And there were so many people that I had to soon decide whether I want to continue with my work at the embassy or like downshift and become just a full-time yoga instructor. And after 4 years of teaching like this and working at the same time, I stopped working at the embassy and purchased a very nice basement, but it's like half basement in the old part of Tbilisi and opened the yoga studio in 2010. And that became the first yoga studio of Georgia. So it still exists. And I already have 5 or 6 instructors that teach at this studio. Most of them are my students as well that became the yoga teachers in our system. And Swamiji already have been to Georgia 4 times. We invited him, conducted seminars on yoga. And I'm very happy that in 2010, I made this decision to become just a full yoga teacher.
Oh, that's so amazing. I love hearing about all the different kind of trainings and things you've done across the world, across so many different countries, and then finding your home in yoga in daily life. I love how it seemed even at first there was some resistance to that kind of slower pace or to not being so asana focused, which we know is definitely the focus, a primary focus in the West. And so it's great that you had resistance to it, yet you kept showing up, you kept being curious, you kept going to classes and practicing, and then you soon realized the benefits and fell in love with it and became trained in it. So for our listeners who aren't familiar with yoga in daily life, that system, and admittedly, I am not myself familiar with yoga in daily life, can you tell us more about that system?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to do it because I really like this system. Swamiji Guru, he came to Europe in 1970. He came first to London and then to Vienna, Austria. And he started teaching classes, and he was actually sent by his guru. And he is the master in the lineage of, it's actually a very ancient parampara, the lineage of teachers. and it comes back to the one of the rishis in the Himalayan caves. Swamiji was sent by his guru to Europe, and he started teaching classes, but soon he realized that it was very difficult for people in Europe to attend his classes because their bodies and their minds were not accustomed to the long meditations, to long practices. He composed, I would say, a very comprehensive system that consists of asanas, pranayamas, and meditations, and shatkarmas, and like the purification techniques, and yoga nidras that would help the people in Europe or the people in the United States. Also has got the centers of yoga in daily life in the United States and Canada and Australia. Let's say the Western world, so-called, to prepare their bodies better for the long meditations that are needed if you want to actually to realize the purpose of yoga, the main purpose of yoga, which is the realization of divine self. So in this system, the person of any age and of any physical ability can practice yoga. There are 8 levels in the system, and we start with the very basic asanas that are called sarvahita asanas, which are more like preparation for the asanas at the first level. And the first level lasts 3 months. And during this 3 months, the body is prepared for the more advanced yoga asanas. Also, during the first 3 months, the basics of pranayamas and the basics of meditation and relaxation are given. And then with each level, the level of difficulty of asanas is increasing, as well as more and more complicated pranayamas and longer meditations. So the whole system, like 8 levels, can be finished in 3 years. But it actually, what I found when I teach, it's difficult for people. And the most difficult part is actually not the asanas, but the meditation. Because already like on the 5th level, we sit in meditation like 40 minutes, 1 hour. And if the bodies are not ready for this, if the hips are not flexible enough and the back is not strong enough, then it's very difficult for the purpose that is, for example, sitting all his day long behind the computer to sit in one position without moving. But of course, the mind is the most difficult part. It's this expression probably from Buddhism that the mind is like the crazy monkey that is jumping from one branch of the tree to another and not staying even a second in peace. But what I like about the system is that any person of any physical ability can start and level by level actually train the body and the mind and get all the benefits of the yoga.
Amazing. Did the guru found the system himself?
He did not actually he found it in the shape that is now. The knowledge was transferred by his guru and then his guru by his guru and so on, how it always been in India in the Gurukul system, like when you live with your guru. But he has to adapt this Indian system to the European bodies and minds. You can say that he found it. Yes, he founded it. But at the same time, this is the ancient knowledge that was in our parampara for centuries and centuries. And he just adapted them to the Western minds and bodies.
That makes complete sense. Absolutely. I loved how you also touched on, Olga, how for your students, you find the most challenging element is usually the meditation. Because while the body with the hips and the back, the yoga asana is helping us to sit in meditation. And what guidance, what advice do you offer your students who aren't struggling necessarily physically with the practice of actually holding the seat, but who are struggling more mentally with the practice? What advice do you usually offer up?
First, we start the deep relaxations and the yoga nidras before we actually start the meditation. Because I think that the mind can be trained as well as you can train the body. And along with training the body, we train the mind slowly, and then slowly, level by level, we add to the meditation. Also, the whole lifestyle is affecting our mind. And we are bombarded by the information. In order to ease the mind, what I would recommend is to read less news. Do not watch the news. We live in such a dense information society, and the information is so disturbing for us. What we eat, the gunas, that notion of gunas in yoga. If you want to meditate, if you want to succeed in meditation, then you have to follow the sattvic guna. You have to eat the sattvic food. You have to engage in the sattvic activities. You have to lead the sattvic way of life. Otherwise, the rajasic guna will just stir your mind, and the tamasic guna will just make it lethargic.
Thank you for sharing more about that. And yes, I agree that we are in a dense information society, and we are constantly experiencing an immense amount of stimuli, more than ever before, and to ourselves from the noise, whether it's actual noise such as car honking, phones buzzing, television noise, but also the noise of what we eat and how that disturbs our body, or the noise, so the tongue, the disturbances of the tongue, or the disturbances of the eyes for what we see. So I think it's good for our listeners to remember that when it comes to stimuli and when it comes to the noise, and it's not just through the ears, it's through all of the senses.
Absolutely. 12, 15 years ago, I listened to the BBC interview, the interview on BBC of two British medical researchers that got the Nobel Prize in medicine. And I don't remember exactly what was the discovery, but I think it was something connected to the genetics or something. And the journalist asked them about the discovery and said that it gives the whole of the humanity because it helps to make the new drug against the cancer. And he asked them, when do they think the drug against cancer cells will be made, will be available? And they said that they were sure that in about 20 years, it probably will be available already to the humanity. But they said that the major threat, more than a cancer, is actually our minds. And they said that the very bad tendency that more and more people are getting stressed, and more people are getting depression, and more people are sitting on the drugs against depression. And they said that it will be in 20 years the real catastrophe. And they said that the mental state of the person is much more important for the physical being and for everything. And when the journalist asked them what they would recommend for people, and they said meditation, I really liked it. That's why I remember it that well. In yoga, the purpose of meditation is not becoming more peaceful or controlling your mind better. The purpose of meditation in yoga is the realization of divine self, of learning your true self, of who you really are. But if on the way you make your body healthy, great. If you feel better, more peaceful, can control your mind better, fabulous.
So something I do like to ask every yoga teacher I have onto the show is, what is your personal definition of yoga, or what is yoga to you? I know you've touched on that throughout this episode, but I just wanted to ask the question directly to hear a little more from you.
To me, yoga is the way to learn my true self. I always, since my childhood, I was putting myself questions about the life. Why am I on this planet, on this earth? Is there God? What is the purpose of my life? And nobody could answer it. I searched in different religions. I talked to many people from different countries. I lived in many countries. I went to different religious institutions. I read a lot of books on philosophers and everything. And I really wanted to learn, what is it? Why am I here? Who am I? And what is it? Am I the body? My body? No, because I say my body. It's my body. I say my mind. Who is that I who belongs to this body and mind? And on the first lecture, when I heard Swamiji, I told you that when I started doing yoga in daily life in 2004, and then in 1 year, I went to Hungary for the seminar Swamiji was speaking. In 1 hour, he managed to answer all the questions that I had by this time. And that was to me like an eye opener. To me, it was like so deep. And I immediately realized that's why I was doing yoga for 4 years. When you hear something and it resonates not in your mind, that you know that every true and that every word is something for the whole your life before. It was so deep.
I love that to hear that in 1 hour, your guru answered all of those questions that you'd been wrestling with for your whole life, those big life questions. And I would love to hear a little bit more about your relationship with your guru and how you decided to become his disciple. Because I know that's something that a lot of our listeners maybe have never met a realized master, have never considered finding a guru, or have some apprehension around that. So if you don't mind speaking more about that, I think it'd be fascinating.
I came to him and Swamiji, I want you to become my guru. And he said, sure, I would love to become your guru. And he gave me the personal mantra. He gave me mala and he tasked what I should do with my mala and how I should conduct my life. And after this, every year I try to be near him to get his blessing, to receive more instructions from him. And I often talk on the phone. When I have some question, I always have his support. He helped me with the advices in a very difficult my life. Just to be near him is already uplifting so much. Each time I come, actually, after meeting him, I feel myself changed a little bit. I became a better person, if I can say. I feel it. I can notice how my relations with other people change. I react to different situations in my life. My thoughts and feelings towards other people, I'm a much better person. And for me, it's such a blessing that I can actually help people with this because it helped me so much and I can help many people with this. And I'm so happy. And that's why I think that the yoga teacher profession is the best in the world.
I'm so grateful to hear more about how your life has been changed as well by being with your guru, by getting advice from your guru, and how that has kind of shaped your decisions or also just made you, better in relationships with other people and with yourself. I would love to learn a little bit more about Georgia as well. I know that that is a country maybe that some of our listeners don't know very much about. Could you share with us more about the country of Georgia?
Georgia is a very ancient country with ancient and unique culture, very unique cuisine, also considered the cradle of winemaking. If we talk about the healthy lifestyle, I have to mention the Georgian wine. 8,000 years ago, Georgians made wine in kvevris. Kvevri is the ceramic amphora. 8,000 years ago. And even if you Wikipedia, you will see that the Georgia is the winemaking. The unique culture, different kinds of dances, rich literature, and people. I think they're incredible people, very hospitable. The country is small, but has everything. The Black Sea, high mountains, the one of the highest mountains, the highest in Europe. And we last years have had a lot of tourists coming to Georgia and exploring the country. So everyone is welcome. And we would love to have you in Georgia. So please come.
Thank you for that invitation. I love it. And also, I know that when you opened the yoga cave, it was the only yoga studio in Georgia at that time. So I'm imagining yoga was not very popular, not very well known, maybe not a word that people were even familiar with. So now, when we're jumping forward to 2022, how is yoga in Georgia?
So we have a dozen of yoga studios only, which is becoming more and more popular. And you can see now in Tbilisi people with the yoga mats, and you can see a lot of different posts on Facebook and Instagram regarding yoga classes and new teachers. emerging in Georgia. Most of it is physical yoga, but I think it's still better than no yoga. So physical yoga will lead to more spiritual practices of the body, to clean the body with the asanas and pranayamas, and then move into more spiritual practices. Just a few days ago, I think about 5 days ago, I was at the lecture of the gastroenterologist. I hope that I pronounced it correctly. The doctor who is actually doing the guts and the stomach and all the system of digestion. The lecture was about common diseases, and the functional diseases are usually the diseases that are connected to the mind, not to the body. And in his lecture, and it was an hour and a half lecture, the doctor was telling that 80% of the digestive disorders are mind related. They are functional. So that comes from the stress, that comes from the soil, that comes not directly connected to the body. So at the end of the lecture, he was actually giving the recommendations on what to do, what would be the best for these functional disorders of the digestive tract. And he mentioned meditation. And he said that even now, official says that meditation is very good for the functional disorder digestive tract can help. So to me, it was like, yes, good. Finally.
Yes, and I love how more and more of scientists and research and studies are coming out just to confirm that connection that has been ancient wisdom passed down for centuries and centuries, as you said. And now the scientists are saying, oh yes, the mind does affect the body. Oh yes, the sickness in the body can impact the mind. Like, it's all how connected it is. I just am so grateful that we are living in a day and age where if you didn't come to the yogic spiritual path through a spiritual way, you could come through to it, be introduced to it just by that new scientific knowledge and understanding that we can change our brain chemistry with meditation, how much we can actually shift in our entire being and body just through meditating or asana or pranayama, these cleansing techniques. It's just such a gift to live in this time where it's being confirmed left and right. Thank you so much for being with me, Olga. It has been a true joy to be with you.
Thank you so much, Lily. It was very joyful for me, and I wish you all the success in life. And you're doing a great job by popularizing the yoga in the world communities. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. My conversation with Olga Ramer, a yoga teacher and the first yoga studio owner in Georgia, was so profound as we took a deeper look at what it's like to be the disciple of a guru and what the yoga in daily life system is. I hope that this conversation gave you something to consider, some food for thought about the purpose of yoga, the true aim of yoga. If you're looking to tune into a podcast episode that is all about a deep relationship with a guru and the importance of the mental state on the physical state of the human being and body, then this is the conversation for you. Thank you so much for listening to the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. Be well. Thank you for the gift of your attention today. If you feel called, please share this episode with someone who you think could benefit from it. Leaving a review would also be so appreciated. I also hope you can join me online on my website, wildyogatribe.com, or on social media. I would love to get to know you better. I would love to share with you and to hear your thoughts. Send me a DM, send me a note, get in touch. It would be great to hear from you. And as always, be well, dear one, be well.